Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm one of the co-founders of Engage Creative, and welcome back to The Edit by Engage Creative.
Yes, and I'm Amy. If you haven't heard or this is your first episode, we are a marketing agency and we specialize with the wedding industry, and we do marketing, business consulting, all of the things. And this podcast is just for us to talk about.
We have so many ideas to talk about. We speak to so many vendors, and hopefully it kind of gives a place of reasoning or kind of even just like giving ideas to other business owners in the wedding industry.
Encouragement as well.
The wedding industry is usually sole trader, so hopefully this also gives you kind of a little bit of ideas that you're not feeling alone in where your business is going.
Yeah.
So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about what every wedding-based business should be doing right now.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because as a business owner, you're doing all of the things.
You're doing all the things,
and I think to have a little bit of guidance and clarity is very important, especially when it comes to your marketing, because your marketing is how people find you. It's your visibility piece. It's your brand awareness piece. So if you don't find time for that, or you haven't, hired an agency like us to be focused on doing that for you, giving you some tips and ideas in terms of what you can be focusing that's going to help you move the needle in terms of your marketing and therefore your business growth is something that I find really important and valuable and want to be able to share with people.
Yeah, so we've put together our 5 different ways that we feel that every business owner should be kind of implementing. So the first one is going back to the core and refreshing your website and kind of your portfolio.
And even your branding.
Just like really stripping it back. Like websites are so important in that research phase for couples. So really going back to that kind of starting ground and like, does your website need a refresh? Is it mobile friendly? Is it getting a little bit too slow? Really going back and being like, okay, let's see how my website is.
The portfolio and the weddings that you're featuring on there. I mean, obviously with Instagram and TikTok and Pinterest, they're all visual mediums and you could kind of look at them as your portfolio.
Yeah.
But I think consistency with marketing is very important. So
you want to see that things have been updated, not they're a dinosaur like from 2 years ago. Like you want to see that
trends change.
Yeah, they're doing current work, or that
that your style has evolved. A lot of photographers that we speak to, their style has evolved or the trends have evolved. So you want to make sure that when people, obviously the main aim with your marketing on digital platforms like Instagram and TikTok is to move people to your website so that they can explore and find out more and then ultimately inquire, and then you can have that client experience, individual conversation with them.
Yeah.
But that consistency, what they're seeing on Instagram needs to be reflected on your website. And you make a very valid point in terms of, again, so many things move and update in terms of the website experience, how they navigate on the website, what it looks like on a mobile.
Is it slow? Like you don't want it to be slow. Otherwise people are going to get the shits and be like, I'm done.
They're going to click off. People's minds are like goldfish now.
Yeah.
If it's not loaded.
Yeah. They want it
or
easy.
Or if it's not fun to be on.
Yeah, definitely.
They're going to bounce. You're going to lose them. So refreshing that is something that I think is really important and something that a lot of people forget to do. And you only have to do it, say, every 3 months. Put it in your calendar.
Refresh your website.
Refresh
your branding.
I mean, what do you think in terms of how often should a brand or a business either like refresh or update their branding and or their website?
Well, I think it maybe looks at like the bigger discussion of like where your brand is evolving. Like if you are looking at kind of where you want to see, like particular photographers we work with, they come to us because they want to go into that next tier. So they come to us from a branding.
Price bracket perspective.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So like they're like, I want to refresh my branding because I do want to hit that next kind of tier of couples that are inquiring. So I think like identifying what that is, or do you want to move into a different style that you're niching down in? So like, I don't know if it kind of means that like you're going back to your core or you're finding that you're changing yourself, but whenever it feels right to you or you're ready for that next step, that's when I think it's the most important.
Well, you always have those businesses that are starting out, and again, money is tight. starting out. We did our logo and stuff originally back in the day ourselves. So you either DIY it or you freelance it. It's very basic. And then, you know, you spend, say, 1-2 years finding your feet, finding what works, finding your style and aesthetic. And I feel like you get to, say, the 2 or 3 year mark and you feel like, okay,
what's next?
What's next? Or like, that doesn't reflect what my business has become, but also what I want it to be. And so I feel like that's a good time for people to explore that.
Yeah.
And then from a website perspective, and I think a redesign, where like a full redesign, probably every 5 years.
I was going to say
where it's like a proper one.
Yeah.
But you can still refresh. I think, you know, depending on the platform that you're on. I mean, we prefer Squarespace in particular because it's very
user-friendly
nimble and it's always evolving and incorporating different elements. But, you know, there's other ones like WordPress, Show It.
Yeah.
All those ones. But I think, you know, assessing what tools or what things have come up in the last year and giving it a little bit of a refresh. But again, a lot of people aren't tech savvy. So even just updating your portfolio, if that is a bare minimum.
100%.
Do that. Even testimonials, if you've got testimonials on your website, you make sure they're current, they're fresh, they're reflective of the work that you're doing now and also the couples that you want to attract.
Yeah. So number 2 would be create an email nurture flow. So I love a welcome series so much. So when the couples kind of directly inquire, what can you set up in your email kind of templates that help them kind of understand the brand or who you are, and then kind of giving those prompts to inquire. When they inquire, they might not directly reply to you because they're still in that research phase, but giving them those little nudge alongs, and I wouldn't overwhelm it. I think 3 max would be great, but just like, hey, we received your inquiry, you know, a week and a half ago. Here's some more information, or here's some more kind of different ways that we've done weddings. I think this email nurturing kind of funnel is super important.
Well, there's a few reasons why I like the idea of a welcome series. Firstly, not a lot of people have set them up, have gone to the effort of setting them up.
Yeah.
So you have an advantage across, like, against most of the industry if you put that in place.
Yeah.
B, we all know how much time it takes to individually reply to inquiries. And obviously there are advantages with that kind of experience. But I do feel like automating that front end and providing an automation, you know, you set it up. So you design up, say, the 4 emails and then you schedule them to go out on the platform. Like MailChimp does it, Flowdesk does it. I really like Flowdesk's workflow functionality, but you set it up to go out. So like they initially inquire, they get an email, and then you have an automation. So a week later, they get another email. A week later, they get another email. So if you can spend the time up front to set that up, and then you just know automatically for every inquiry they're getting that email sequence.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is be conscious of, you might want to update it at some point or change out the information, so you don't just want to
seasonally you want to like showcase like the upcoming trends that like we're coming into winter, so like what's coming up, or you know, like if they're inquiring for, you know, summer 2026.
Yeah, you want to make sure it's not like a set and forget.
Yeah.
I think the other thing as well is, especially in any kind of commercial situation, people need certain touch points. Obviously, there are businesses, a lot of e-com and products where people can see something once and instantly want to buy it. And, you know, the framework is there where they can. But for weddings, and especially with that longer lead time that we're seeing, you want to have lots of touch points. So you want to be
100%.
showing up to them, whether that be through your marketing, through your social media, but also, you know, a friendly reminder that, hey, I'm here and I, you know, this is what I have to offer in a non-salesy way, I think is very important, because people, again, if you're engaged and you're inquiring with a venue and a photographer and a videographer and a celebrant and a florist and a caterer and a this and a that, you're getting bombarded with emails and information. So, and that can be like initially, but to show up a week later, 2 weeks later and be like, hey, I'm still here.
Makes your brand really stand out.
Well, it's a way to stand out. And I think that's very important.
Yeah. Number 3 would be obviously tightening up your inquiries and kind of making sure that these people feel like they're personally like really kind of nurtured. So what do you kind of think on that?
Well, I think, again, I kind of weigh it up between how you're choosing to spend your time. And every business is different in terms of how personalized it is and if you're doing it or if maybe you have an admin. I think the client experience in terms of providing information, being accessible in a way that information
like frequently asked questions on your website, or like making it just like so easy to be like, contact us, and having like the kind of tools to be like, okay, yep, I can input all of my information, but also there's an email address there, or like,
but it's getting back to people as well.
Yes.
It's getting back in a timely manner. It's providing information. It's making them feel, again, you want to establish that connection.
Yeah.
There are certain vendors or industries like photographers, celebrants, that you want to be able to connect with those people so that they feel comfortable with the idea of working with you, that your pricing doesn't, like your pricing matches that return on investment, because I mean, we haven't even talked about that in terms of the cost and also the like the emotional investment as well as the like financial investment of it. So having that booking experience very clear, very easy for either you or someone else to implement and do on an ongoing basis, but that guides say if your client has booked, it guides them with what needs to happen next, and whether that you do that through automation or you do that through, individual meetings or a combination of things. That's super important. So again, if you are a little bit quiet or you've seen a lag in
or even it's winter time,
that have a think about, okay, what is my booking process and how can I make it better? What can I implement? This is actually one of the things that we came out from our strategy day was, how do we delight our client? So how do you make that inquiry and booking process one that delights them is something that is like a question that I would ask.
Yeah. The next one is invest in evergreen content. So obviously like making sure that like the wedding industry is so different, and this is why it's like such a niche industry, because we are not getting repeat clients. Like, we hope not, but like in an ideal world, we're not getting repeat clients. Word of mouth is everything. So making sure that we're constantly reiterating the message of who your brand is. It might seem to you like you have flogged that horse of who you are or who your team is, but it's always going to be new to someone else. And when they come to discover you, they still want to find out who you are, who your team is, what kind of makes you different. So
what you offer.
Exactly. So investing in that evergreen content that you're constantly putting out will mean that like the life cycle of a couple, they'll come, they'll follow you, they'll do that research, they'll book you. And then, in 1 to 2 years, they'll probably unfollow you if it's not relevant. So making sure that like you're constantly pushing that messaging of who you are. You're not going to be a brand that people buy into for the rest of your life, unless like they do kind of like, I love obviously still following who my florist is or who my photographer is on a personal level. But, couples, when they're in that research phase, if they haven't gone ahead with you, they'll unfollow you. So like making sure that you're showing up in front of those new eyeballs of who you are, what exactly you're wanting to kind of showcase for your brand, I think is so important. And that then goes back to the evergreen kind of funneling.
I think that's one of the reasons our clients work with us. I think where we remove that barrier from them. I feel like a lot of people that we talk to initially, they get so caught up in analyzing their business or analyzing what they're doing. They get paralysis analysis and they just don't do anything, or they don't think it makes sense, or they've heard it so many times. Yeah. Where for us, it's like, no, you need to
keep doing it.
I mean, obviously, like, think about the cadence and think of how often you're doing it. It's not like every day. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you have strong branding, if you have strong messaging, if you have strong tone of voice, if you know who it is that you're speaking to, take pieces of content that about you or about your services,
and keep reinventing
it. Like that's the whole point. Find ways to leverage it. Find ways to repurpose it. And it's all great. And we definitely see the power of taking viral or trend-based pieces or styles of content and adapting that for how it might potentially work with our clients. But that That's like an add-on. That's like a nice thing, especially if you like doing marketing and you invest the time and effort, which a lot of people that like business owners don't have time for. So I think if you could get your core evergreen content actioned in a way that you can repurpose it every 4 to 6 months and you can get out of that paralysis mindset that it's like, oh, I've already heard this before.
No,
exactly
it's
what you
so
said.
important.
People get engaged all the time.
Yeah.
It's new to them.
Yeah, 100%.
They might
So
never
just
have
like
seen
investing in that evergreen content is just so important.
And educational as well.
Yeah, totally. So the next kind of tip I like to have when we're talking with wedding kind of clients is like making those connections with your peers. I think that like word of mouth is just like so important in this industry. So connecting with other vendors that you kind of see are like-minded or that can recommend each other. If you've got great connections with a venue or a photographer or a florist or hair and makeup artist, they're gonna, when they get booked, they'll say, hey, this is who else I recommend. So connecting with those peers and making sure that kind of you're in the front of, maybe you want to invest in a styled shoot so you can get those people together. Or maybe it's like looking at going out for dinner with like those small kind of group of vendors, I think is just so important.
I would agree. And I think that kind of come naturally. So maybe this is more of a talking point for people that are just starting out or trying to find their feet. Because exactly like you said, word of mouth, when it's couples, you know, telling their other engaged friends or their family members that are engaged, that's a really valuable one. But having a vendor say, hey, that person's great to work with, or I work with this person all the time, that's also really valuable. And again, it's another touch point in terms of like
standing out.
It's a way for you to advertise yourself without you advertising yourself, because someone else is doing it for you. Someone else is saying they're great to work with, or I like working with them.
I have been in like a number of like wedding dress appointments when I've like visited clients and like the bride is there and I've asked them, who is your photographer? And they're like, I don't know, I'm choosing between X and Y. And like, if I've got an industry connection, then obviously I'll be like, yes, sure, definitely go ahead with this person. So like word of mouth in this industry is just like so important.
I think it gives a sense of encouragement, and I think it gives a sense of like, okay, cool. Again, there's so many to pick from.
Or also like, you will go ahead. Like I know I was one of the first out of my friendship group to get married, but then I had such great things to say about some vendors that like my friends ended up booking them. And then that like continues, you know, you go to a wedding, and you're like, oh my God, this florist is amazing. So then they tell their friend about it. So it's just like really making sure that you're showing up when it comes to kind of that either wedding day or like online that like encourages word of mouth even more.
I think it's easier for vendors, especially if they're a little bit established, because they're going to weddings.
Yeah.
So they're interacting with vendors a couple of times a week, and they can kind of establish those relationships. If you're a newer business and you're maybe trying to get bookings under your belt, or you're trying to find your feet, I mean, potentially like reach out, see if you can go for coffee, see what kind of events are around that are bringing, you know, other wedding vendor people together. Or is it
a photo shoot?
I mean, if it's a photo shoot,
if
or
you're
a style
photographer that's starting out, can you like, you know, message some designers and say, hey, look, can I get together with, you know, a couple of the designers that you have? Like, it's just really like making sure that like you treat that as a serious funnel as well.
Yeah, I would agree. So out of all of these kind of takeaways or touch points, which one would you pick as your top one for people to do?
I mean, like I'm a chatty Cathy and I love making connections with people. So that's probably like my one that I feel like in terms of like engage creative and like what has made us successful, like I love making connections with people because I feel like that's like the word of mouth of engage creative. Personally, I think it's so important in the wedding industry. Yeah, that would probably be mine. What would yours be? I mean, probably systems and processes and whatnot.
Do you know what? I'm going to like do a curveball, and I'm going to say the evergreen content.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I think having looking at that in a different way that people might not have thought about, and getting out of that idea that you can't say the same thing again.
Yeah.
But, you know, thinking of a different way to do it. Maybe you did it as an image carousel. Maybe now might be the time to do a green screen face to camera or a reel or a voiceover or something. So just not being afraid to say the same thing
over and over again.
Well, not over and over again, you know.
Reinventing the wheel.
Reinventing it, because again, like you said, it's always new people and it's going to be new to someone else. And I think that's really valuable.
Yeah. Cool.
This was fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed this episode.
I liked this one because I feel like it's like the nuggets, the bite-sized nuggets of like the 5 instant points that you should think about in your business.
Yeah, so we hope that you took something away as well. Maybe let us know. Send us a DM if you wanted to implement one of them or which one you would have picked.
To hear from that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Amazing. Bye.